the title fight between Max Holloway and Jose Aldo. Never bury your lead. Let's start with Holloway versus Aldo, and right now, Jose Aldo, slight favorite, minus 145.
Yeah, and look, this whole card from top to bottom doesn't necessarily feel like a pay-per-view card, but this fight in particular is one that diehard MMA fans have waited for so long and are so excited about it that this feels like a big card, mostly because of this fight. And this one's been really great two-way action, and this is what makes fights great. When you can make a strong case for both guys, this is a fight we opened at Aldo minus 135, swung all the way to Max Holloway minus 115 at one point, and then a big wave of Aldo money this week has Aldo all the way back as a 140 favorite. But I've heard a lot of really smart MMA guys making really strong cases for both fighters.
Yeah, that's how I felt. This one, to me, was kind of a pick-em. I was leaning towards Holloway at first, then Aldo, and just the way I see it. Holloway, better gas tank, right? I think that's his biggest strength. And also, he fights pretty good southpaw. Expect to see Max Holloway coming out southpaw for this fight. The last time Jose Aldo saw southpaw, it was Conor McGregor, and he got knocked out. So maybe that's in the back of his head.
I don't know if you remember seeing him, but...
Aldo, the stronger guy. Also, Kenny Florian did pretty good with Aldo, and he fought him southpaw. So I think Aldo would rather fight a right-handed fighter. Mm-hmm. And I noticed Holloway likes to fight whatever his opponent isn't. So if he's fighting a southpaw, he fights right. If he's fighting a southpaw, or if he's fighting a righty, he goes southpaw a lot. So I think we're going to see Holloway go southpaw. I give the speed and strength advantage to Aldo, wrestling advantage to Aldo. But like I said, the big advantage in the 5-round fight, Holloway, if he could push that pace for 5 rounds, fight him from the southpaw position, this could be an interesting night.
And I think Holloway's the bigger finisher here. Like, he goes for the finish. I was looking at some stats I had on Jose Aldo.
He likes sitting on a lead.
6 of his last 8 wins are by 6 of his 8 wins in the UFC. He's 8-1 in the UFC, Jose Aldo. 6 of those 8 wins are by decision. And this is a guy in his WEC days that was known as a big finisher, as a big puncher. To your point, he sits on those leads in the UFC. And a guy like Max Holloway is not going to allow you to do that because he is going to be coming late, regardless of whether he's down 3-1 or up 3-1. So it's a really interesting test.
It is. And that speed advantage, I think it's got to go to Aldo. I went back and watched Holloway versus Conor McGregor, and Conor just had a significant speed advantage. And I think that Aldo and Conor's speed's a little more comparable. So I do expect Aldo to have that speed advantage. But if Holloway pushes the pace, then that speed advantage could even itself out as Aldo fatigues later in the fight.
One thing I think I've learned in MMA, and you both could probably speak to it better than I can, having actually been in the sport so long, is that you see a big jump with guys. When Aldo fought McGregor, he was 21 years old. Rarely do you see a 20 or 21-year-old in MMA. Yeah, Max was. Yeah, Max was 21 when he fought McGregor and lost to McGregor, and that's the last time he lost. But rarely do you see fighters reach their peak at 20 or 21. In boxing, these guys can do it a little easier. In MMA, you just don't see it. You may not be physically ready for all the different diverse skill sets you're going to see. And you see that jump a lot of times, I hear, from 20 to 23 to 24, getting that 15th to 18th fight, you make big improvements. And Max Holloway feels like one of those guys, now still only 25 years old, 4 years later after the McGregor loss, who might have made those big improvements.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So this one, like I said, pick 'em. I personally, when I go back and forth in my head, I don't have too much conviction on either fighter, especially when the odds aren't too slanted in one direction. I tend to sit back, but you guys are going to share your bets.
Well, I'm going to go with Jose Aldo just because it's in Brazil. And if it goes to decision, when you're in Brazil...
there's
a
hard
to
chance
factor
you
that
get the
in.
nod.
I think that's a real point, Nick.
Yeah, you have to think, how many bad decisions have you seen in Brazil?
That's true. That's a good point.
When I first saw this fight announced, my initial feeling was T.J. Dillashaw, Renan Barão won. Renan Barão at the time was known as the best technical striker at 135, and I went, Boy, I could see Holloway doing to Aldo what TJ did to Henan Brown in that fight. And then the more I watched it, I felt like the biggest, most important factor in this fight for me is going to be those Jose Aldo leg kicks early. Because if he starts landing those leg kicks, and he has the best leg kicks at featherweight early, and slows down Holloway, his technical striking and his footwork is good enough for him to just start using his footwork, boom, boom, combinations in and out, and he could outpoint Holloway.
That's a good point. I think he in this fight is going to be slowing down Max Holloway early, and I think you do that with leg kicks and also with wrestling. Although you don't agree and think we'll see Jose Aldo initiating some offensive wrestling, we all know how good his defensive wrestling is. But I think we might see him try to slow Holloway down just by getting a takedown here and there and making him slow down because Aldo's so explosive, powerful, and fast.
Yes.
That fast twitch that he does fight in spurts a little bit more. And I could see if Holloway tries to push the pace on Aldo, Aldo's going to get uncomfortable and look for ways to slow him down. A, by those low kicks that Matt mentioned, and B, by getting a takedown if it's there.
Yeah.
And maybe the reason that we haven't seen Aldo's wrestling as much all the time is he fought so many wrestlers, Chad Mendez twice, Ricardo Lamas, Uriah Faber, that he didn't want to wrestle those guys. So we didn't see Aldo wrestle, but to your point, when he has used it, it's definitely been effective.
Yeah. And he is strong as hell for that weight. So moving on down the card.
Who did you pick?
I'm not going to bet the fight. I'm only betting 3 fights straight, but I am going to use Max Holloway in a parlay, and it's strictly as a fanboy situation because he's the underdog, and I'm just so impressed with the leaps he's made from a 21-year-old who lost to Conor to a 10 fights later, a 10-fight win streak.
And Mr. Bonnar, are you?
Yeah, I'm not touching that one.
Not touching this one? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a toss-up. I make an argument for either guy, and when I do that, I tend to save my money.
Instead of flipping coins.
So, but moving on down the card, I'll tell you where there is some value. You got